and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove. I'm joined by a man who has been described as Hexy. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I appreciate that that's an allusion to me being attractive, but in reality, I'm actually just six-sided. It's strange. You wouldn't know that to look at me.
You're really excited about six-sided objects.
Yeah. It's my passion.
So we're here to talk...
Hate stop signs. Love six-sided things.
US men's national team World Cup qualifiers. If you don't know, the US plays Costa Rica on Friday evening. It's on ESPN. And then next Tuesday, they play Honduras. We are here to preview the Costa Rica game.
We are. Before we get to it, though, I have to say, whoever's doing the marketing for hexagons really needs to step their game up, because we've got, like, the Pentagon, we know the Octagon from UFC, from stop signs. Yeah. Hexagon, step up your game.
It's got CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers. What could be better?
I guess, yeah, I suppose, but that's just the hex.
They've got the best one.
Even then, they've lost some branding there. They're missing some letters. That's all I'm saying. Marketing teams, prepare yourselves.
So, the actual hex situation, the World Cup qualifying situation, USA are in third place, Costa Rica are in second place, Mexico in first. If the US wins this game against Costa Rica, we jump over them and take second place on goal difference.
Correct.
Or probably on goals scored if we only win by one, but we can take them with a win. Bit of extra background. Stop me if any of this is wrong. The away game in November, where we lost 4-0 away to Costa Rica, is essentially what cost Jurgen Klinsmann his job. It's why Bruce Arena's in charge now.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It definitely didn't help that they had just previously lost to Mexico 2-1 on home soil. But yeah, I think the 4-0 drubbing in which it was
an embarrassment, right?
Yeah,
it was terrible.
Yeah, and we just went back. I had really worked hard to completely forget that game. We went back and watched a little bit of it. It was rough.
It was rough. But then also, I was going to sort of frame this as like a revenge mission. But we've already beaten Costa Rica in the Gold Cup semi-final, which we rewatched a bit of as well. And so it's almost like we've exercised that ghost.
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah? But, I mean, that's still a Gold Cup where you have weakened squads, theoretically, for both teams. Costa Rica, when we played them, had a lot of injuries.
Yes.
So this is going to be a close to full-strength team, minus a few key names that we'll get to later on. So I think you probably do have an element of we want revenge, and we certainly want a pro-U.S. atmosphere, which is why they've made some of the decisions they've made regarding where it's going to be played.
Yeah, okay, so in order, we're going to talk a little about the U.S. roster. There's a whole U.S. roster show with Robo 3 yesterday, but you and I are going to talk a little bit. We're going to preview Costa Rica, kind of what we expect them to do. Then we're each going to pick our preferred US starting 11, which we haven't revealed to each other. There's been a lot of secrecy in studio. Then I think I like
that you say that as though there's not going to be a considerable amount of overlap. Maybe there won't be, but it's like we're still picking from the same roster pool, right?
Do you have Matt Hedges up front?
Obviously. Starting in both spots. It's a risky proposition.
And then, as I said on Twitter, after we reveal our 11s, we will defend them like a PhD thesis. Then later on, we'll figure out what Bruce Arena is going to do.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Let's start with that roster then. Once again, I feel like not enough attention is paid to this. Once again, Bruce Arena has listed 26 names as if that's what you're allowed to do. It's a 23-man roster for World Cup qualifying. Bruce Arena has found a cheat code where you basically just call up 26 players, they're in your squad, and then on match day, you just have to name 23.
Right.
Yeah? I'm declaring Bruce Arena the world's greatest genius for figuring this out.
The world's greatest genius? Wow. All right. I mean, I think there are other reasons why Bruce Arena is, or isn't, depending on your perspective, a genius. But yeah, this is pretty smart.
Genius.
Because, number one, I think it allows him to call in more players in case you get some injuries, in case some of those European-based players get hurt. You've got people there because the United States is a big country, and you kind of got to worry about people flying in from all over the place. Yeah,
I guess it's true. It's not like in England where they can sort of train in Burton, where they've got the centre, and then if someone gets injured, no one's ever too far away.
Yeah, like when I had Luke Moore,
mostly because English people never leave home and go and play in the country.
Yeah, well, when I was talking to Luke Moore and we were talking about doing live shows around England, that it's they had to do a long drive to get 2 hours. It's sort of that gets us from here to DC.
People would drive that far for dinner in the United States.
You're not wrong. So I think that's part of it, and I think the other element is just that, as you said, not even midway through the hex, but when last we played Costa Rica, it was a different person in charge.
Yeah.
So I think for Bruce Arena, even though he's obviously
Voldemort? Do you want to say his name?
I mean, well, yeah, you're in Klinsmann, whatever.
All right, but we don't want to get into all that, right?
No, but my point is that I'm sure Bruce Arena was paying attention. I'm sure he had ideas about what he would do. I'm sure he was preparing his resume and his plans accordingly. But it still is an abbreviated time frame for him to get ready for the World Cup. So I also wonder if maybe this is another opportunity to bring in a couple more people. Yeah. Just to say, hey, Christian Roldan, I know we only got to see a little bit of you at the Gold Cup.
It was brief,
Kick the ball around here. We'll see what you can do.
Kick the ball around. We'll see if you're any good.
Yep.
And maybe Matt Hedges, we know you're better than what we saw in the Gold Cup. Maybe prove it in this camp.
Yeah.
Because there are definitely, when you look at the roster, there's sort of 5 centre backs named, where normally 4 is what you get. So yeah, there is definitely a bit of spare parts kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
it's like when you finish building an IKEA thing and there's one left over. I think that's Matt Hedges and Christian Roldan right now. They're the spare screws.
Yeah, sure.
And I guess Chris Wondolowski.
That make you look at the roster and wonder, like, is this okay? Have we done something wrong? Something's terrible.
Did I put this together right?
Is this going to fall apart at the worst possible moment when I put too much pressure on it? This IKEA analogy works very well. Well done, Daryl. Well done. Is it going to last more than a year? Do we need it to last more than a year? Is this just a temporary stopgap until we get a more permanent solution in place?
Wow, you really roll with this.
I mean, it's working. It is working.
Anything else jump out at you about the roster? I mean, again, I talked with Rob Usher. I know you've listened to that show. Maybe Timmy Chandler, we hit on that only briefly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I was not surprised that Timmy Chandler wasn't included, but I would have liked to have seen him included, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head, which is that, like, I think you both did, that he hasn't always been that motivated, and I think the fans know that, or at least he hasn't seemed to be that motivated to play for the USA. I think the fans know that, and maybe Bruce Arena has picked up on that.
Yeah.
He wants to focus more on the people that he knows and trusts.
Mm-hmm. And it's just unfortunate that Yedlin's out and the people he knows and trusts at right back listed on this roster are Graham Zusi and Eric Lehigh, who neither of whom were particularly good in the Gold Cup.
Yes, and I think maybe that's him giving them one more opportunity, potentially. Yeah. But the other thing that I would say, and we got a little bit of stick about this last time we talked about Timmy Chandler.
Let's definitely do it again.
That Fabian Johnson has made similar statements. That he, like a couple months ago, he said, like, I only really want to be called up for the big games.
Yeah.
And don't want to be called up for friendlies or
maybe he just meant specifically that weird Cuba friendly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that burned a lot of bridges. I think people weren't too thrilled to be playing that game.
And I think some of the leftovers of those burned bridges were scattered across the field. The bumpy field.
But I think that maybe, like, the Fabian Johnson, Timmy Chandler, even Chris Wondolowski here, I think...
Who scored in that Cuba game, by the way. He rescued the US from embarrassment, Chris Wondolowski.
Sure.
He did.
That's fine. But I think, and even my hesitation here points to what I'm trying to get at, which is that I think a lot of times... you forgive certain behaviors from certain players because you like them and you think they're good. And I personally am willing to give Fabian Johnson, all the room he needs to recover and get healthy to play for a club, but then also be ready for the World Cup. Whereas maybe with Timmy Chandler, because he hasn't always looked great for the United States, there was some... question as to whether or not he actually wanted to play for the U.S. or if he was going to file a one-time switch. If he was that dedicated, that now I'm sort of like, it's okay. Whereas if Fabian Johnson were left out, I'd be pretty frustrated.
Yeah, fair enough.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
And I think for me, that extends to Chris Wondolowski, that he missed a clear-cut opportunity in a time when it really, really mattered.
Talking about Belgium.
Yeah. But that's really the only reason why I have any sort of ill will towards Wondolowski. But that carries so much weight that it makes it hard.
But at the same time, like, Julian Green scored in that game. Does that mean we should call him up and start him?
Absolutely not.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely not. Yeah. No. Yeah. So it's the weird conundrum of following a team for as long as we do, and kind of knowing as much as we know about the club or about the national team, that it makes you sort of remember the key moments and forget the ones I couldn't have remembered that he scored against Cuba. Obviously, you could. So
he also scored against the LA Galaxy this past weekend with that run of play Panenka chip over the keeper. So he's kind of in form is the other thing.
Yeah, I think that's what a couple people pointed out on Twitter, that he is in good form.
Better form than Dom Dwyer, for example.
Yeah, it's not just that they're calling him in because why not? He's a forward, let's throw him in there. It's because he's kind of earned it on the run of play in Major League Soccer this season.
The other absence I noted was Jermaine Jones, and I thought maybe that was a Timmy Chandler end of the road type situation, but it seems maybe he's not fully fit. He was on the bench for LA, I think, in that Cali Clasico. I don't even know if he entered the game, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
His Instagram is enough for me to know that he's not fit.
What?
Because he always does, like, the Instagram. See, this is how sort of out of touch I am. It's like the live feed or whatever you can do where you, like, post the video, but it's not actually an Instagram image. And it's always either, like, his kids, like, dirt biking or playing with some exotic animal that I don't even know what it is because it's in rich people land.
Rich kid activities?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Or them eating expensive food, or him driving in traffic, or him getting treatment. It's like one of those four things. So to me, that indicates a player who is not quite fully fit and ready to go.
Yeah, but at least he's living his best California life.
I mean, you understand why he wanted to move to LA. You definitely do.
All right, so Jermaine Jones, it sounds like he's not done with the national team, or Bruce Arena's not done with him, but they're not going to call him in when he's not fully fit, right? Even if it's clear that his diet has been very high-end and healthy.
Yeah, very, very much so. And then the only other omission... I mean, I was sad not to see Danny Williams because I had a prediction that he would get called in, but he hasn't been a consistent starter for Huddersfield, so that makes sense.
Although he has played some right back, so he would have been an interesting right back option. But that's a huge gamble for your 2 Hex games, right?
Yeah. The one that I don't think would have been too much of a gamble is Ethan Horvath. And Even to
Interesting,
say,
right?
like, maybe you call him in on a 27-man roster and just get him in there just so he's in the mix. Because, yeah, it's Brad Guzan, it's Tim Howard, it's Nick Raimondo.
Not in that order, but okay.
Not spring chickens is what I would say. That's how they're listed on the roster. I'm assuming that's alphabetical.
Yeah.
So it would have been nice to see some young blood in there competing. And
Bill Hamid, maybe, after impressing at the Gold Cup?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the only other one where I would have liked to see a little bit more variety.
Yeah.
But it is sort of the roster that we expected, given injuries and limitations. I think it makes a lot of sense. We're kind of like nitpicking here.
Okay, speaking of injuries, two quick notes. Omar Gonzalez came back and did play for Pachuca last week, so he's like fit enough to at least start for Pachuca, so we think he's good. Fabian Johnson, all he has this season is a 10-minute substitute appearance for Borussia Mönchengladbach this past weekend. He came in for the final 10 minutes with Gladbach leading 2-1. They conceded, it ended 2-2. I can't say I've seen enough of it to say that it was his fault or anything like that. So, but it's just a weird coincidence type thing.
Sure.
But I'm not convinced that Fabian Johnson is fully fit, is what I'm saying, because he's only played 10 minutes. Yeah. Anything else on the roster? Oh, you talked about Red Bull Arena earlier and why the game is in New Jersey.
You know that the stadium wasn't drafted into the roster, right?
No, but I have to believe that Bruce Arena had some role in choosing the stadium, right? Because didn't he sort of have a role in choosing the increasing elevation to prepare for the game at the Azteca last time out?
That would make sense.
Do you remember we played, I think, in at Rio Tinto, and then in Denver, and then at the Azteca.
Yeah, that all checks out.
It's a bit more pre-planned, and it seems like more thought has gone into playing this game at Red Bull Arena than previous games against Costa Rica.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where it's Bruce Arena versus where it's Sunil Gulati or anybody else in U.S. soccer, but essentially from what I read...
They got coffee and talked it over.
Probably. Yeah. From what I read, it was they wanted to play on natural grass,
and
they wanted to play on the East Coast. Because you've got all these players coming in from Europe, that's the easiest locale for them to get to in the fastest, shortest amount of time.
East Coast is closer to Europe than the West Coast.
And
if we get a load of players in the J League, then we'll go West Coast.
Yeah, and then I imagine there's also that like you take into the time of the year it is, you don't want to go to, say, Florida, where it's going to be incredibly hot, incredibly humid. I mean, not to say New York isn't hot and humid right now, but certainly not on the level of, say, the South.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why you look at the Northeast, you look at New York, where there's a couple airports. I don't know if you knew that, Daryl. So you can probably get there pretty easily. But the other thing...
Do the Right Thing was not set in September. It's definitely like middle of summer.
Yeah. But the other element, from what I understand, is that if you want to say like U.S. soccer was being like generous, they decided to take less money from the gate in order to have a better atmosphere, but they still charged a decent amount for the tickets. But regardless, I think the point was that for important games, historically, the United States has wanted a more intimate, quote-unquote, venue.
That's one of the benefits of Crew Stadium, right?
Exactly.
Columbus. Sorry, I forgot what it's called.
Matt-free.
That's it, Matt-free Stadium, the Columbus Crew Stadium, is that it's not huge, so you can get nice and sort of compact and a good rowdy atmosphere and no empty space.
No empty space, and also no predominantly the opposition support, because I forget what article I was reading, but it was basically pointing out that in 2013 qualifying, I think the United States was playing Honduras and the stadium was primarily Honduran fans.
Yeah.
So I think they wanted to avoid a situation in which the United States were playing a home game that didn't feel like a home game, especially because historically Costa Rica has never won a game in the Hex on U.S. soil.
Okay.
So I think that's probably another trend that they are looking to keep going.
Fair enough.
So Red Bull Arena it is.
Red Bull Arena it is. Should we talk Costa Rica?
Sure.
Okay, so we think... so let's look at Costa Rica's roster, for example. First thing missing that you notice is Joel Campbell.
Yep.
Joel Campbell got injured. He definitely... Arsene Wenger seems to have fallen out with him a little bit, but he's definitely sort of one of their key players. He's not going to be involved. I think almost everybody else is there.
The only one would be Matarrita.
Matarrita, the right wing back.
Yes.
Okay. Luckily, though, Costa Rica is a nation of wing backs. They must teach it sort of at some sort of grade level how to play wing back. So they have plenty more to choose from, right? Gamboa. I've forgotten the name. It's Salvatierra.
Salvatierra. Those are your two at right back. I think Matarrita probably would have been a left back for them.
Okay.
Because Matarrita's out, it will be probably Calvo would be my guess.
Got it.
That's who started there in the Gold Cup.
So I say that because I'm almost certain that Costa Rica are going to come and play their classic 5-4-1 formation. Which is it's worked for them. It got them to the World Cup quarterfinals in 2014. Different coach, but they've sort of kept with a similar system, right? Yep. And they do two things. When they have the ball, they kind of take their time with the ball, move it around, and then eventually they hit Marco Orenia. They find him. He's very good at running in behind or running wide or coming deep and collecting the ball, right? He's not a great sort of... percentage-wise finisher, but he's very useful in terms of running the channels, making things happen. Yeah. Then you've got Brian... Sorry, I'm just kind of listing Costa Rica, so interrupt me if anything is incorrect. He can then drop the ball to the creative talents of Brian Ruiz, who we should all be very, very scared of.
Yes. I think especially U.S. fans, especially knowing what he can do for Costa Rica and has done repeatedly for Costa Rica.
So he'll be number 10. I do remember, even from the Gold Cup semi-final, there were some moments where he sort of shredded the United States.
I thought you were going to go with your favorite fact about Brian Ruiz.
What's that?
He's going to wear number 10. What's going to be on the back of his jersey?
Oh, Brian.
He has Brian.
Brian
with a Y.
Brian with a Y.
And I think he is the... Of all the kind of talent Costa Rica have, Brian Ruiz is the one to keep an eye on because he's the one who can play those through balls, can find the space out wide, can play the good through the good long balls over the top end of the box, can obviously shoot as well.
Bit of everything.
Yeah.
And he almost has this weird freedom because they're 5-4-1.
Yeah.
Brian Ruiz is kind of like a right midfielder in it, but you end up with the wing back going outside and Ruiz comes inside to be like an attacking midfielder.
Yeah.
So he's got all this space where he can drift around in, and it makes him very, very hard to track.
Yes.
So that's going to be one of the key things to look out for the United States.
Yeah, and part of the other reason why he has that freedom is because you're right that it's like technically a 5-4-1, but I would almost classify it as like a 5-2-2-1.
Yes, I think that's better.
And so you've got kind of the crowding in the
middle.
middle.
You put it up on the chalkboard here in the studio and you have gone 5-2-2-1.
I mean, right, it's more so that, like, obviously people will drift wide if need be, but generally speaking, it seems like Costa Rica try to keep those numbers in the middle, so the United States can't really find that much space. But it's also so Brian Ruiz can drift around, but he still has lots of cover there. He doesn't necessarily need to worry. It's
one of the best formations in terms of covering space because you can clog the middle with 4 central midfielders, or you can like double team on the wing if Ruiz pulls wide. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and then it also works really well because, as you were alluding to, when they have the ball, it's kind of keeping it, picking their spots, being smart with it. Sometimes looking long, certainly, especially if they see the opportunity.
I think Ureña is just great at Ureña is great at sort of making those runs and opening up those channels. That's another thing where someone's going to have to stick tight on him and know when to follow him, when to pass him off to a midfielder. Yeah. He'll be trouble.
But when they don't have the ball, I agree with you completely. And then when they don't have the ball, they are going to put you under pressure, make it difficult for you. And part of that is going to be...
They press, right?
Yeah, that they can basically push their people into the middle so that you're not able to pass through with any sort of ease.
Yeah.
And if you play that ball out wide, you're going to get pressure early. So they already have people defending whoever you might have in the box. And then when you're putting somebody under pressure who's trying to cross that ball in, it's going to cause problems because then they don't have the time and the sort of ability to pick their head up, find the spot, play the exact ball they want. Even if they're under a little bit of pressure, it makes it that much more of a less accurate ball.
And the good thing that the US did in that Gold Cup semi-final where we won 2-0 is kind of anticipated that from the start. Do you remember what happened? From the kickoff.
Pinged it.
Costa Rica pressed, and I think Graham Zusi just pinged it down the wing. Areola flicked it on. I think there's another touch in between. Jordan Morris hits the post within, I think, at least 20 or 30 seconds, at most 20 or 30 seconds. We really figured out a way to sort of...
I'm going to say 33 seconds.
There you go. Right. So we figured a way to bypass that press and just go direct. And when we pick our 11 later on, it's a little preview of my team. I'm going to be thinking about ways to do a similar thing.
That's fine, because if you want to go to that game as well, you're right.
The semi-final?
That happened inside the first minute. Goals didn't happen until much later, and goals didn't happen until Clint Dempsey came on as a substitute.
That's also true.
And a big part of what I think Clint Dempsey brings is, everything Clint Dempsey, being able to score on a free kick, that doesn't hurt. Having the silky touch and that kind of swagger confidence, you need that.
He's the Brian Ruiz of America.
But correct, but they played together at Fulham, I believe. But the other thing and we've talked about this with other clubs who try to play this sort of crowded midfield, high pressure system, is that when you have a player who's comfortable with the ball at his feet and can take people on, it can be problematic because now if you've got 4 defenders and 1 attacker, you have that sort of hesitation. Like, wait, am I stepping? Are you stepping? I don't want to go in too hard because I shouldn't concede a foul if you're right behind me. And Clint Dempsey, that's where that first goal came from, is that he beats 1 player. Then you've got 2 who kind of step to him but don't step aggressively enough because neither one wants to overcommit. He's able to beat them. Then he plays in Josie Altidore scores.
Yes, he does.
So I think if you have those types of players, those creative playmakers in the middle, and kind of coming inside and taking people on and having that confidence, I think that's also an area of potential strength for the USA.
Oh, so we're going to have a conversation later in the show about whether Dempsey starts or not, but let's save it.
Maybe.
Let's save it for later.
Okay.
One more guy I want to sort of pinpoint is a guy that was not on the Gold Cup roster. Actually, 2 guys were not on the Gold Cup roster because they were busy with their La Liga teams, which is an indicator of their sort of high profile within this Costa Rica team. Numero uno, literally, is Keylor Navas, the goalkeeper, Real Madrid's goalkeeper. The team that keeps winning the Champions League, they have Keylor Navas in goal. He's going to be a tough guy to beat. It was the statue Patrick Pemberton instead.
It was, and even in that game, the first goal, it's Josie Altidore played in by Clint Dempsey, but it's still Pemberton off his line. And I've watched that goal now probably 40 times between today and the last time we watched it. Still not entirely certain how that goal goes in. Because it really is, Josie Altidore is at a relatively tight angle, and Pemberton just doesn't do very well.
You say never stops it.
I think he might. And then the free kick where Pemberton is like crouched down in a full squat in the like way too far to his right post. Clint Dempsey just bends it around the wall and puts it in.
He looks like he had a bathroom emergency as he was waiting for the free kick to come.
Or just maybe he was going to the bathroom in a country that doesn't use toilets but goes with the hole.
Is that what Costa Rica does?
I don't think
sure.
No, they do not. But Turkey certainly does in certain places. So that's what came to mind when you mentioned that. Let's get away from this conversation. Let's move to the fact that I think when you've got Keylor Navas in goal, maybe
upgrade.
Maybe neither one of those goals goes in, and that's a thing to be concerned about if you're a U.S. fan.
Keylor Navas is Maya Rudolph's pimp in Idiocracy. Upgrade.
There it is.
Goal.
With a bunch of Y's, I think. It's spelled definitely weird. Yes, so that's one. And then the other gentleman that you were alluding to?
Celso Borges. Celso Borges plays for Deportivo La Coruña. He will play, I'm pretty confident he'll start in central midfield alongside a defensive midfielder. Say Guzman, maybe Tejada, probably Guzman. Right? Yeah. Portland fans will say Guzman. And Borges will be the guy with the clever passing. You'll see a lot of the Costa Rica's possession play will go through Celso Borges. I don't know what number he's going to wear, but you'll know him when you see him. He'll be the one passing the ball. Yeah,
and so if we go back to the Gold Cup, they started with Guzman and Venegas because Borges was not there.
Yeah.
When Venegas went out with injury, then it was Yeltsin Tejada.
So that's two defensive midfielders together then.
So my guess
is they could do that?
They could, but I think you're right. It's probably going to be either Guzman and Borges, maybe Guzman and Venegas or Tejada, but I think your inclination is correct. Okay. The other difference from the last time the United States saw Costa Rica is who's going to be the kind of left-sided attacker. We mentioned Brian Ruiz on the right.
And just to get this in people's heads, if you think of their forwards, it's Ureña is definitely like the main key, like target man centre forward. Then you just kind of have Ruiz hanging off into the right, and then you have someone hanging off into the left, and it could be, Ramirez?
Ramirez is who it was when the United States played them in the Gold Cup, but that was because Rodney Wallace had to leave after the group stage due to injury, and even Rodney Wallace might not be the starter because there's a chance it's Christian Bolaños.
Yeah, and you'll recognise Christian Bolaños for his sort of long hair with the big, what do you call that, like big headband thing?
Yeah, sure, big headband. Yeah.
But you mean the big wide headband, not like an Alice band.
Christian, big wide headband, Bolaños.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for him. He's the guy that put the first cross in when the US conceded against Costa Rica back in... When it all happened in November.
When it all happened in November. And then since we've talked so much about Costa Rica, we probably should mention their center backs because there'll be three of them.
There'll be three of them.
And we're not entirely sure who it is.
Can we actually, are we guaranteeing a 5-4-1? I think I actually listened to our preview going back and I was sort of joking that Costa Rica has a national 5-4-1 day when everybody celebrates it. But they do occasionally go back four, right? But the reason I was confident it's a 5-4-1 is that they're away to the United States. Yeah. And it just seems like maybe apart from Mexico, it's the toughest game in the hex, so you go with your most defensive, reactive formation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still going to be the Costa Rica that we know and love when they're not playing the USA. It's basically it's not like they're just gonna sit back the entire time, frustrate the US, look for a 0-0 draw. They're certainly gonna try to get the goals when they can get them.
They're here to hit us on the counter.
Yeah, they're gonna try to play a little bit. But yeah, I don't see them dramatically changing things against the USA when all they need is a point to really kind of secure qualification.
All right, so my question then is, in the back three, is it going to be Kendall Waston and is he going to get a red card?
It might be, but I think, again, going with what they did in the Gold Cup, they had Johnny Acosta, they had Gonzalez, and they had Kenner Gutierrez, who I did not remember at all because I think he got injured in the very first game. After that, it was Kendall Waston. I don't know if it will be Kendall Waston. He did also play against the United States when Costa Rica won 4-0, so it could be. But he is, as you said, sometimes a red card waiting to happen, and sometimes just kind of a liability that he doesn't necessarily track pacey runners very well. He concedes fouls. So I could see that being problematic, especially...
But he does win headers.
He does.
He does win
but
headers.
If the United States aren't going for big headers, if they're going for Bobby Wood being fast and Christian Pulisic being silky, Josie Altidore dropping in, then maybe that doesn't help them so much.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of that long ball that started the semi-final game and Paul Arriola won it. I just don't see Paul Arriola beating Kendall Waston in the air, ever.
That's true.
Maybe 100 tries he wins one.
But I think Kendall Waston started that Gold Cup game against the United States. Right. So that might be the wrinkle there.
Okay, so before we move on to pick our preferred US 11s and then defend them like a PhD thesis.
Sure.
Singing that like Outcast. We should mention to shake it like a Polaroid picture.
I'm with you on that. I'm still confused as to don't you have to defend it in front of people and get asked questions?
In front of each other.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you're going to grill my 11 and I'm going to grill yours. Are you not ready? You're not prepared for this?
I mean, I don't think there's going to be that much difference, but sure.
All right.
We'll see what happens.
I want to remind you of a little show called US Men's National Team All-Time 11 Draft.
Oh, you mean where I picked a good team and you picked whatever you picked? Yeah, that's fine.
Not what happened. As I was saying, today's sponsor is Bonfire.com. You may remember Bonfire. We mentioned them a couple shows ago. This is the company we use to sell Total Soccer Show t-shirts, because I honestly think, even I'm not just like home team biased or they're our sponsor biased, they're the best platform for anyone to sell t-shirts through.
Okay, so let's talk about why that's the case, because I definitely don't disagree. I've enjoyed how easy this has made things.
So first of all, no out-of-pocket cost. You can start selling t-shirts without you having to go and buy inventory and fill, let's say, a big white cupboard in the corner of the Total Soccer Show office with t-shirts that you've paid out of pocket for, which is something we did previously. Yeah,
I'll also say that when we did it previously, like we switched around, we tried a couple different providers, which meant that we got a couple different colors. So the sapphire blue is a different color blue depending on whichever provider you have. So we definitely had a couple different ones that were slightly different shades.
Yeah, so you get consistency with Bonfire. You also get, you can sell multiple colors at once through one campaign. The campaign part is important because the way this works is you set, like, I'm going to sell these for 7 days, I'm going to sell these for 14 days, I'm going to sell them for 21 days. And the reason that they are able to give you a big cut of the profit, right? They don't just give you like a little, the crumbs that you get from other t-shirt sellers online. They give you a big chunk of the profit because they wait until the campaign is complete, and then they know how many to print and how many to ship, and they do all that for you. They print it, they ship it. You don't have to sort of get people's address and size. They do all that for you through the online platform.
Yeah, and if you're going with like being like, so you could use it obviously for nonprofit or for charity or for fundraisers or anything like that. But
fundraise for a soccer team or a podcast.
Yeah. But if you are trying to make a little bit of money, it's nice that they have the kind of adjuster where you can see, like, if I want this style, if I want a long sleeve shirt with ink on the front and the back, and I want to do this is how much it's going to cost. And then that's going to show you how much you're going to make. So you can kind of adjust the price to see, I want it to make X amount of money. I need to ask for X amount for this shirt to make that amount of money.
Okay, and two people who have taken us up on this offer of going to bonfire.com/total soccer and setting up campaigns. Two that we've seen so far. One is from Chris Moorhead. Chris Moorhead has set up a t-shirt titled, "Run all the miles, eat all the food." It's a really good design and a really catchy phrase. I feel like I've heard that phrase before.
I like half of that motto.
Well, the point is you can only do the second one if you do the first one.
I mean, not with that attitude.
Run all the miles, eat all the food. You drive all the miles, eat all the food. So we'll put a link to Chris's t-shirt.
Sit passively, eat all the food. Is that allowed?
Then record all the podcasts.
Yeah.
We'll put a link to Chris's Run All the Miles, Eat All the Food t-shirt in the show notes if you want to support his t-shirt campaign. Second one is from Scott DeMarinville. His t-shirt is a Midway Wanderers t-shirt. And all the proceeds are going to benefit Dark Clouds, which I believe is, actually now I'm certain because I asked on Twitter, is Minnesota United FC related.
There we are.
So it says Midway Wanderers. We'll put a link to the Midway Wanderers shirt in the show notes as well. Hoping Minnesota fans might be into that one.
Indeed, but if other fans of the Total Soccer Show wanted to check out Bonfire, what can they do, Daryl Grove?
You go to bonfire.com/total soccer and you'll get sort of a special welcome page where they will help you with your design. If you're good at designing, that's fine. You can put the design on there. You can set it up, do it all yourself. If you just have like an idea or a sketch of what you want to do, part of this advertising campaign is that they will help you set up the design for your t-shirt and you'll be ready to go.
All right, sir. So thank you to Bonfire for sponsoring today's program.
Yeah, and for making our t-shirts. You can also buy TSS t-shirts, totalsoccershow.com/merch. You'll see it there, and then you can buy a TSS t-shirt through Bonfire. Thank you to Bonfire, local Richmond company.
All good things.
Yeah.
All good things. Speaking of good things.
Yeah.
My starting 11 versus your starting 11.
Okay, let's start with yours then.
No, let's start with yours.
You want to start with mine?
I want to start with
yours. I just did a lot of talking. You ready for some more?
I'm fine with
All
some more.
right. Okay. So, here's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to maybe explain it. You asked me to defend it, right? I'm kind of explain it in terms of why I think this works. I am going with Tim Howard in goal. Good choice?
Yep.
My back four, I've gone for Jeff Cameron and Matt Beasler as my starting centre-backs. The reason I've not gone with Omar Gonzalez is, one, Not convinced he's 100% fit, and I'm kind of prioritising that. Even I know he played the game for Pachuca. 2, we had issues with Omar Gonzalez in the Gold Cup where he kept dropping deep, kept sort of ruining the offside trap by being too sort of, I'm going to back off, and I'm going to wait till the guy comes at me, and then I'm going to tackle him, ruin the offside trap. We went back and watched the goals from the November game. It's remembered as the John Brooks disaster game.
Yep.
And it is that, especially that one goal where he sort of miscontrolled a long ball.
Yep.
But so many times, John Brooks was playing an offside trap, and Omar Gonzalez was running backwards and breaking the offside trap, and then leaving the US exposed.
Right. To clarify, you said so many times that was accurate. When I said twice, I meant because two goals come directly from Omar Gonzalez dropping way off and not really paying attention. And you can go back, if you want evidence of this, go back on our Twitter. Like, you can look at the photos that people have posted. Go back to around that time, and you will see if
November 2016?
Yeah, that I took. We haven't posted that many photos, so it shouldn't take too long. And there's like a time lapse of Omar Gonzalez positioning for the 4th goal, I think it is.
Yeah.
He literally does not move for 3 seconds as Costa Rica are dribbling at him.
10 yards behind the rest of the defenders.
Yeah, and he's just staring at the ball. And it's moments like that make me question him in these types of games.
And so Gonzalez really did redeem himself in the game against Jamaica, the Gold Cup final. But I'm thinking of this as an Ureña versus US defenders matchup, and based on past evidence, I'm not sure Omar Gonzalez is the right guy. I think Matt Beasley is the right guy. And not only that, left-footed centre-back. We're losing one in John Brooks because he's injured. He's not on the roster. Matt Beasley is a left-footed centre-back. I'm going to go with him over Tim Ream, mostly just because I'm slightly more comfortable with Beasley. I'm not even sure why. I just feel like he's got more experience, essentially.
Yeah.
If it's Ream, I'm okay. But I would choose Matt Beasley to partner Jeff Cameron.
So Jeff
Cameron, the organiser of the defence, obviously.
I'm going to jump in at times when it works, and I'm going to say, so far, we are on the same page.
Okay. My left back is Jorge Villafana.
We're still on the same page.
The other option would be DeMarcus Beasley. I think it might be DeMarcus Beasley down in Honduras. Like, Bruce Arena may do what he did in the previous World Cup qualifiers, where he switched the roster for the tough away trip. And, he gets the more experienced guy in there. But I think Villafana for this at left back, he's going to offer... he's not a terrible defender, right? He's a respectable defender, but he offers a lot going forward, and I'm really excited about it. My right back. So Timmy Chandler's not there. DeAndre Yedlin's injured. It's Graham Zusi or Eric Lehigh. I could not get happy about either of them. If it was me choosing this roster, choosing this 11, I would start Christian Roldan at right back.
Okay.
I've seen him do it for Seattle, and I'm much happier with what I see from him than I am with what I see from Zusi or from Lehigh.
Okay. So, first of all, what is it about Zusi and Lehigh individually that makes you not so excited to see them?
So Zusi, I always see him sort of getting his defensive positioning slightly wrong and people sneaking behind him, and then teams seem always able to play either a through ball or a diagonal or over the top of Zusi to hit the runner in behind him. How many times have we seen Graham Zusi jumping for a header and just missing by an inch? And it's not because he sort of thinks he's taller than he actually is. It's just that his defensive positioning is wrong.
Yep.
Or maybe even if it is the first one, that's still bad.
Yep, I agree with you. And Lehigh?
Lehigh, I just felt like there were way too many weird giveaways from Lehigh in the Gold Cup, right? And this is stepping up a level. Like, I know that it's literally the same national team that we're playing against, Costa Rica. It's a slightly better version of Costa Rica with Navas and Borge, but it's also just a more important, higher pressure competition. World Cup qualifying. I don't trust Eric Lehigh to not give the ball away. It's really harsh. Like, he is definitely a better player than we saw in that game. And he's definitely a better defensive player than Graham Zusi, but his sort of possession game worries me based on what I saw in the summer.
Okay, that's fair. Do you want me to make my argument, or shall I wait?
Why don't you wait and we'll just go through your 11 later? Because I'm really interested to get your feedback on why you would agree or disagree with Christian Roldan.
Well, let's just do that now then, because I think that makes more sense.
Okay, yeah.
And we can kind of like sum up at the end.
All right.
But I think, number one, first of all, to go back to your Beasley point, I think that you're probably right, and I think that's because in terms
with
of
him maybe playing down in Honduras.
Because if you go back to the last World Cup qualifiers, we thought maybe like the wholesale changes were sort of out of nowhere. And Bruce Arena said afterwards, like, no, we planned that from day one. That we planned these changes. And I do wonder if maybe there is sort of, Villafana, you're playing against this team, you're expected to do this. Beasley, you're going to play against this team, you need to do this. And now you can both practice those specific things and get ready for those specific things.
I think it's also about fresh legs.
True.
Yeah.
So to go to the right back options, I agree with everything that you said, except that I don't want to see another player played sort of out of position. Even if he's done it before, it's still not a solution. I think it's not a long-term solution for me.
So I think if Christian Roldan as not being played as a right back in the way that Kelly Acosta was played at right back, where he didn't really have any experience there. Like Christian Roldan has played right back, he's played central midfield, he's played attacking midfield, he's played right wing for Seattle, I think this season, but also throughout his career. I think he just is a versatile player that's capable of dropping into various different spots. So it's almost like it's actually an Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain situation. I'm sure he'd prefer to play centre midfield because it's the most glamorous, most involved position. It's sort of the position you dream of if you're an all-round footballer. But it also, he's perfectly capable, I believe, of playing right back.
For Seattle in Major League Soccer before we've gotten to the playoffs of the playoff pitch.
I agree.
And I think that's the key point for me is like that's all well and good. It's not a World Cup qualifier, and that's a very different animal. And to throw a person in to like in a position they have not played, at least for the United States, at a very important juncture, I think that's asking too much. And I think honestly it's asking too much of people to be like, yeah, okay, that's fine. If anybody else did that, for example, Jurgen Klinsmann, I would be like, what is happening? Why are we experimenting? Let's see if either one of these guys, who are probably going to be the second or third choice right backs, can really cement that role or get a little bit higher. And so for me, I'm going Eric Lehigh. Because I had the exact same concerns that you had about Graham Zusi. With Lehigh, I wonder if it's an element similar to Christian Roldan, actually, of being brought in kind of out of the cold, hadn't gotten a lot of minutes for the U.S. national team. Suddenly you're there.
In the Gold Cup, you mean?
Yeah, and just suddenly you're there and you're being asked to like, okay, now you play here, but never mind, Zusi's going to play this game. Okay, now you're back and now it's a different opponent. Like, I just wonder if maybe with a little bit more briefing, and a little bit more time, and a little bit more backing, he can look sharper than we saw him look in the Gold Cup. And I'd rather have a right back playing right back at a time when we need to figure out who our depth options are going to be.
Okay, I feel like we spent a lot of time on this, but I also feel like it's weirdly the most sort of questionable / controversial position on the entire US national team right now, because Timmy Chandler's obviously out. DeAndre Yedlin injured, he would have been the first choice, and no one's been happy with what we've seen from Graham Zusi or really from Eric Lehigh, right? I mean, so this is why there's the big question mark here.
And again, I know Graham Zusi has done things at club level. I know there are people out there who love him, but it really won't, it never won't feel like when the United States, if they had beaten Ghana in 2006 and gone through to the next round, to the knockout round, and they would have gotten Brazil, but because of injuries and suspensions, it would have been Ben Olsen starting against that Brazil team, and just sort of like, that's not good. Like, I don't want to be in a position where DeAndre Yedlin gets hurt, and now it's like, all right, Graham Zusi, mark up on Ronaldo. Like, oh boy.
So can I make one final point in favour of Christian Roldan? Because I don't think this is an impossible situation. I think it could happen that at some point in camp, Bruce Arena was like, oh, this could be the guy. I want to say he's the best crosser of a ball of those three players. Better than Graham Zusi because he looks up before he crosses. And better than Eric Lehigh because I don't see him getting down the line and crossing very often. So I think he's kind of an offensive weapon from back there.
Yeah, but that's not what I want right now. I want a right back who's going to lock it down and do his defensive job. And we've been so frustrated by the U.S.'s back line, how ragged it's been at times, how inconsistent it's been at times. I don't want to put a person in who's now like, cross the ball and that's your number one goal, and maybe mark if you can.
So you're going Lehigh because he offers sort of more defensive stability than Graham Zusi, and you kind of sacrifice a little bit of whatever.
Yeah, and I would also just like to see him.
People might argue he did score that amazing goal in the Gold Cup.
See, there you go. But I think I also just want to see Lehigh given a little bit more time, get a little bit more backing, and see what he does if he's looking more comfortable.
Can I raise one option D, which is Rob Ussery mentioned he would like to see Fabian Johnson possibly play right back in this game. Any love for that?
No.
Why not?
Only because, as we've talked about many times, Fabian Johnson has said, I will play wherever you want me to play, but that's where I want to play. Like, don't keep moving me around. And I think...
And we chose midfield, right?
Yeah, and especially just given like what we talked about earlier with Fabian Johnson, that he's coming back from injury. Yeah. The idea of him coming back and being like, all right, you're going to play right back in this game, but then you're probably going to play left wing next time, or maybe you'll be left back. Like, again, it just feels sort of like, maybe this, maybe that, could be this, let's throw this up there and see what happens. Whereas right now, I'd much rather see us sort of gelling into some sort of cohesive unit.
I also don't trust Fabian Johnson positionally any more than I trust Graham Zusi. And I'd use the 2014 World Cup, where Johnson was incredible going forward, enough to start those Barcelona rumours. There was a lot of defensive positioning, like literally losing a man type mistakes. I still say the reason Ghana scored that first equaliser before John Brooks rescued us is because Fabian Johnson switched off and lost his man.
All right.
That's an old argument to relitigate, so I won't do it now.
I like that you threw it up only to shut it down. So then let's move on. So far we basically agree on 4 out of 5 positions. Okay,
but you want Lehigh right back, and I'm rolling the dice on Roldan.
Yep.
Okay, so ahead of that, I was sold on Rob Ussery's idea of at home the US will play a sort of diamond or a
Yep.
4-1-3-2,
Yep.
and away they may go sort of more either 4-2-3-1 or even back five like we did against Mexico. So that shape in mind, I think it's obviously going to be Michael Bradley as the number 6. He'll chip you. He's not scared. He's the leader. He's in much better form for the US than when Klinsmann was in charge. I think the US haven't conceded many goals from open play with Michael Bradley in this spot. I'm all about it. So that's kind of, we can take that as a given, right?
Yep.
I think ahead of him...
I'm enjoying this because it's just you explaining everything and me saying, yep.
Ahead of him...
It's almost like one of us predicted that there wasn't going to be that much disagreement in our two theoretical lineups.
Okay, I've gone 2 forwards and then 3 attacking midfielders sort of ahead of Michael Bradley.
Yeah.
I'm going to go left to right. Darlington Nagbe on the left. It's his best position. I think he does good work from there. Christian Pulisic in the centre. So I think he's just in form. I'm really excited to see him there. And Paul Arriola on the right. I think Paul Arriola just busts his lungs up and down the right wing. I think he offers sort of the sort of pressing and aggression that we want, and we saw against Costa Rica in the Gold Cup semi-final, combined with an attacking threat and that incredible first touch and turn thing he can do if you hit a long diagonal ball to him.
My silence here is because, you swayed me on that one. Because I think I had Fabian Johnson as the right-sided midfielder. I agree with you across the board then, outside of that. Nagbe on the left, Pulisic in the middle. But the issue with Johnson on the right then is, number one, it doesn't really seem like the position he wants to play either. It seems like there is that sort of debate as to who gets to play left side of midfield, Nagbe or Johnson. Fabian
Johnson and Darlington Nagbe, both of their best positions are left mid in a 4-1-3-2, and they can't both do it. And honestly, I choose Darlington Nagbe because when he plays there, he influences the entire game in terms of making the US pass and move a bit more because he starts so many moves, whereas Johnson is more like he'll be involved in a quick move here or a quick move there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And so then it comes to that right-hand side, and I think I just had Johnson there because I assume Johnson's going to be there.
Because you want him in the team, right?
Well, not even that. It's still hard for me to go away from. But this is probably what's going to happen. And I know we're picking what we would most like to see. But it's still, when something has been the kind of constant, you expect that to be the constant. But I think you're absolutely right that Paul Arriola proved it in the Gold Cup, has made his move, and is continuing to play well. And I think you're right that he is kind of earned it, especially because he's shown that he can play on that right-hand side. Fabian Johnson coming back from injury, a key point there.
That's the major thing for me.
Maybe he plays against Honduras
as a result. That's why I felt okay not starting him. It's because he's only played 10 minutes of professional soccer this season. I feel okay not starting him in this World Cup qualifier.
But if only there were another person who could play on the right, who we've just discussed is a capable crosser of the ball and can play all over the place. Why not have Christian roll down as your right-sided midfielder, Daryl Grove?
I'd rather have Paul Arriola at this point. But I wouldn't be upset if it was
just
Christian
poking holes. Just poking holes. I think that's a safe shout there.
And the other thing is, Arriola is almost to a fault will work back. Yep. And if Costa Rica do have sort of that left-sided player and the left wing back coming at you, it's probably going to be Calvo, you thought maybe?
Yeah.
If he's coming at you, then at least you've got Arriola providing some extra cover for whoever out of his depth right back may be. Ahead of those attacking.
Actually, that's another key point there, because you're right that I don't think it'll be Christian Roldan. I think it will. My guess, we'll get to this in a second, but it's
going to be Graham Zusi.
I think it's going to be Graham Zusi, and there you do want Paulo Arriola doing that work running back, especially if it's also Omar Gonzalez. Then you've got two guys who aren't very good at communicating.
I'm scared if it's both of those
you need somebody like Paulo Arriola who's going to help out and do that running in a way that Fabian Johnson might not.
Okay,
so,
my front two to start this game, I think because of the way that Costa Rica, we need to sort of bypass their press by sometimes just going direct and catching them with pace, like we did in the semi-final. I've decided to go with the exact same starting front two as in the semi-final. That's Josmer, Volmi, Altidore, and Jordan, J-Mo Smooth 13, Morris.
All right, then.
Josie Altidore, Jordan Morris are my starting two. And I understand that Bobby Wood is probably a better player than Jordan Morris at this point. I think Jordan Morris, I say think in capital.
I like how you're talking yourself out of it before I've even said a word.
I'm not convinced I'm right, but I think Jordan Morris is better at pressing than Bobby Wood.
Oh my God, I didn't even need to do anything. That's amazing.
Did you remember that game, how Josie and Jordan Morris both really hassled the Costa Rican defenders and made them play and sort of hassled them on the ball? I want to say that it worked last time, so I'll just say do it again.
And I want to say that the reason why Jordan Morris was doing it in that game is because Bobby Wood wasn't there. If Bobby Wood were there, he would have been doing that exact same thing.
You think?
Because, yes, Bobby Wood is a better player. Bobby Wood might be a better player than Josie Altidore. That's a debate you can have if you so choose.
Yeah.
But I think Bobby Wood is more than capable of doing all of that work and doing it better. And I think we also just talked, as we talked about last show or the show before, that Bobby Wood also seems like he's getting more comfortable being that striker, being that focal point of the attack. Josie Altidore, as we talked about, even though he's the big guy, he likes to drop in and link up play. I think Bobby Wood can let him do that, run off of him, but still put people under pressure and work well with Josie Altidore.
Okay. I mean, I don't really want to argue with you too hard. I'll just be happy with whichever one starts.
All right.
Is it weird that we're at a point where we're both talking about Clint Dempsey not starting and we're not particularly upset about it?
No, because I'm sticking with that's what I think works best for him. I think he's an impact player. I don't think he can go the full 90 minutes and look effective for those full 90 minutes.
But he does it in MLS for Seattle all the time.
Yeah, and it's a different level. It's a different level than World Cup qualifying against World Cup opposition, a team who can go far in the World Cup, as they've already shown. I think for me, Clint Dempsey is a player who can come on, have an impact, and sort of, I think he is such a smart player that he can watch that game and see, oh, that guy's not stepping fast enough. Oh, this guy's not moving over to cover. I can get in there, and that's going to be a problem. And I think not starting gives him the ability to do that for 60 minutes and then come in and just tear apart teams.
Like an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah, because that's what he said, right? That he was always watching to find weaknesses and find vulnerabilities, and that's why he was such a good impact striker.
He wasn't just like on his phone tweeting or whatever. There wasn't Twitter back then, was there?
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is slightly more baby-faced than Clint Dempsey, I would say. But yes.
I think we might have said this earlier, but just to repeat, against Costa Rica in the Gold Cup semi-final, which is kind of our template for winning this game, Dempsey came off the bench, and after he came off the bench, the US scored 2 goals with a Dempsey assist and a Dempsey free kick.
Right, and I love Clint Dempsey, and I mean I drafted him first, I think, in my US all-time draft. So keep that in mind when I say this. I think that in the positions that he could play, there are better options. I think Bobby Wood and Josie Altidore are better out-and-out striking options right now.
Yeah.
5 years ago, probably not. But right now, yes. And then in terms of like that creative central midfielder, we both have Christian Pulisic. And I think he's the one that we both want to see.
I'd offer a slightly different argument, which is that I think maybe Dempsey is a better striker than Altidore, Morris, Wood, or Wondolowski. I think he's the best striker on this roster. But I don't think, and I think he can play 90 minutes and be perfectly effective at doing what he does. I think the argument for this game is that what we need against Costa Rica is just pace and like the ability to sort of close down and hassle the Costa Rican central defenders so that they can't sort of establish a slow possession game. And so for that reason, I think it's better to have just basically faster guys for the outball and for the hassling than Clint Dempsey to start the game. So the thing that he hasn't got is the thing that we need.
Yeah.
And so therefore him coming off the bench will be effective later on.
I feel like there were some straw man things happening just there for a second. Because I'm not saying he can't play 90 minutes. I'm saying that he is not as effective playing a full 90 up top than he would be coming off the bench for those final 30 minutes and doing what you just said.
From concentrate, right? You want sort of concentrated all that Dempsey magic in 30 minutes instead of spread out over 90.
And probably a little angry as well.
Do you think it makes him angry being on the bench?
Yep.
I imagine him sitting on the bench like, is it a bull who will like rub their foot on the floor when they're sort of ready to go? I imagine him doing that for 60 minutes, maybe takes a break at half-time. And then it's almost like Arena sort of unleashes him. And like they open the gates that the balls come out of, and then woof, off he goes.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yes, I think so. I think he always wants to play, and I don't mean that in like he's sitting on the bench like me. Like I think he's just sort of like I'm going to go prove that I should be here, and I think he doesn't take it for granted. I really don't think that he sort of is like I should be here, I should be starting. But I think it is definitely like I am going to prove that I deserve to be starting.
The weird irony is the more he comes off the bench and makes things happen, the more he proves that he should be the guy to come off the bench and make things happen. Oh, but
yeah, it'd be different if he like went out and like deliberately whiffed every time that he was coming off the bench, and then when he started, he scored inside the first 2 minutes.
I mean, he did do that in that for that penalty kick against Mexico to not make it 3-0. Remember that?
True.
So one more question here is not what we want to see, but what will Bruce Arena do? What would Bruce do? WWBD. What will Bruce do?
I mean, I think we've kind of...
go roll down it right back.
I mean, I'll roll through it really quickly if you want. Because I think he also won't do much dissimilar from what we talked about. Like, I think it'll be roughly that same 4-1-3-2, 4-4-2 diamond, depending on how you want to look at it.
Okay, let's take that for granted then.
Sure. I think it's going to be Jorge Villafana left back, Omar Gonzalez, Jeff Cameron in the middle, Graham Zusi on the right, Tim Howard in goal, Michael Bradley as the holding. I think it will be Fabian Johnson on the left, Darlington Nagbe on the right, Christian Pulisic in the middle, Bobby Wood and Josie Altidore up top.
Here's what I think might happen. So I do agree that Dempsey doesn't start. Sorry, this is the thing I was trying to think of earlier, and I'd forgotten the quote, but it's I think it was Tim Howard in the press conference yesterday said Bruce Arena's got us. He's got us in this good team spirit. People want to be in camp, and he's sort of got guys convinced that they've got something to give, even if it's not the full game.
Yeah.
He was essentially saying Clint Dempsey is willing to just play 30 minutes without actually saying those words.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's not going to be Dempsey starting. Not just because we think that's what should happen. I think there are signals being sent that that's what Bruce Arena has said he wants to see happen, and Clint Dempsey has sort of reluctantly co-signed.
Yeah. Well, there's a decent amount of speculation coming in here right now, so grain of salt. But I do wonder if almost like there's the joke in 30 Rock. This is going to be a tangent to get us to a segue that gets us to the point, I think. There's the joke in 30 Rock when Jack Donaghy goes to work for the Bush administration, and Matthew Broderick's character is called like Scooter Burger, and you find out it's because he was once eating a burger, and so that's his nickname forever. And like I do like the idea of like Bruce Arena taking that as sort of like Paul Arriola is hustle guy, and like Clint Dempsey's like sub guy.
Paulie Hustle.
Impact guy, yeah, Paulie Hustle. But so it becomes, and all that is to say that I like the idea of it being like, Paul, your job is that you are going to hustle. Like I know you're going to work hard. You're going to hassle that player. Yeah. So
also do that weird first touch magic thing that seems to simplify physics, but I'm on board with it.
No, see, I'm getting rid of that. No, because I don't want that because that complicates.
You want to simplify it
only because I think that's what
reductive Rockwell.
See, hold on, let me get to my point. Then you'll understand before you debate the outlying points. What I'm getting at is I like the idea of Arena saying, "I need a hustle guy." Arriola starts, Fabian, that's why you're not starting this game. But I need a cerebral playmaker. I need this guy, not this. And so the players kind of know their stereotyped nickname role, but that justifies it. So that if, I need silky playmaker who pace isn't really an issue for, Clint Dempsey, you're going to start now. And if people know what their expectation is and what their role is going to be, then there's probably not frustration when, I need someone to work really, really hard on that right wing. It's not going to be you. It's going to be Paul Arriola. I need somebody to be a really good crosser. Now it's not going to be Paul Arriola. If they know their roles, then there's probably less frustration when they're not playing certain games.
So you're saying is this a thing you think is happening or just a thing you're
it's
like a thought experiment?
It's a little bit of a thought experiment just based on that quote of people know their roles and they're okay with accepting minor roles or whatever it is.
I guess it makes the argument less complicated. If it's just hustle guy, there's hustle guy, and you go. I mean, and then someone else can't argue. Oh yeah, but I've got this grade point average. Or
yeah. I mean, exactly that. And I think it. Speaking from experience, if I were playing for a team and I were a really good crosser of the ball, but in this game, we're going to try to play through the middle, so it doesn't. Yeah. If I were, but if in this game we're going to try to play through the middle, Taylor, we don't need you. We want to put this guy, put him more central. He's going to play through the middle. If I'm being told you're a great crosser of the ball, but we don't really need you in this role, I'll be yeah, that's fine. I just feel I'm less likely to be frustrated and be.
Listeners can't see Taylor did a big grin when he said it's fine.
Yeah, a happy dopey grin. I'm just less likely to be a problem in the locker room because hey, I should be starting. It's just sort of your role. It makes you more comfortable. It's like a dog. Dogs need discipline. They need roles. I am also a dog. I need discipline and to be told what to do. Structure gives me comfort. Is I guess what I'm getting at here.
Okay, so based on what we think Bruce Arena's going to do, getting back to his roster, I am kind of concerned about the fact that I'm pretty sure he's going to start Omar Gonzalez.
Yep.
Because I think Bruce Arena just loves Omar Gonzalez.
Yep.
And there must be something about him that makes it worth having a useless offside trap that makes his inclusion worthwhile.
If I were trying to make you feel better, which I will now, I will say maybe the difference is that we talked from the beginning that we wanted to see in the Gold Cup. Maybe this is going to be where Omar steps up and is a leader and is that vocal leader.
Is the Jeff Cameron voice?
Is the Jeff Cameron, and now the Jeff Cameron is going to be there, and so maybe if Jeff Cameron is there. Because it wasn't Jeff Cameron and Omar against Costa Rica. It was Omar and John Brooks.
Yeah, and I don't think either of them are too talky and too organizer-y.
Right.
So maybe what's missing is Jeff Cameron.
Yeah, so really, we talk about things to keep an eye on. I will be curious to see if in those first 10 minutes, if you see Jeff Cameron at some point turning and screaming at Omar Gonzalez. Because that will tell you he's on it.
His arm forward.
Yeah.
Step up, Omar. Step up. Yeah, that would solve everything.
Yep.
That really would then make Jeff Cameron, I'm going to say, the most important US national team player, even more important than Christian Pulisic.
And the other key thing that neither one of us has mentioned, and how have we not mentioned this, is that
I don't know.
Who was in goal in that 4-0 loss?
I think it was Brad Guzan.
It was Brad Guzan because Tim Howard was injured. Tim Howard was not the goalkeeper until the knockout round in the Gold Cup. So even not having Tim Howard there, I think, is a problem. So now you've got Jeff Cameron and Tim Howard. Neither one of them is going to let anybody slack off.
Yeah.
So they're going to be letting you know from the outset. And so maybe that also makes me feel a little bit more confident with Omar Gonzalez starting.
So we'll see less of him dropping. Okay.
Theoretically.
All right, moving into... So we talked about the forward line, right? You think Bruce Arena will do Josie and Bobby Wood to start. It's kind of hard to argue with that, especially after all the Dempsey comments, right? To me, then, the attacking midfield three is the interesting part because Bruce Arena has shown an interest in having Kellyn Acosta as like a central attacking midfielder ahead of Michael Bradley. You even saw him in the Gold Cup coaching Kellyn Acosta in how to do that a little better in a way that suggests he wants to do that. Because it maybe offers you a bit of like attacking mid, but also then if we need to drop back, I can put him alongside Bradley without making a substitution, just making a switch in the same game. So you could have Nagbe on the left, Pulisic on the right, Kellyn Acosta as the central attacking midfielder who can then come back.
Don't love that as much.
Don't love it as much?
No, because I feel like that ends up being more of just a kind of a 4-4-2.
It basically is, right?
And then against a potential four-man midfield from Costa Rica, that's not ideal. And really...
Because Acosta's problem was he wasn't always being in the right place to find the ball.
Yeah.
Right? Which is not something you can ever say about Pulisic or Nagbe.
Yeah, so I mean, it leaves open a lot of question marks because then you could see maybe it is Clint Dempsey and he starts centrally and Christian Pulisic goes out wide and you've kind of got a more like that's compact style in there. I don't think that will happen, but... Bruce
has done this against Honduras, right? The game we won 6-0. Didn't he play Christian Pulisic in a central attacking midfield role in a 4-1-3-2?
Yep.
All right, so maybe that is the template. What we did to Honduras is what we'll try and do to Costa Rica.
I think it is. I think really the main question mark is if it's Fabian Johnson, and if it is, does that mean Nagbe's on the right as opposed to the left? Because I think he looks better playing for the U.S. on the left, he being Darlington Nagbe. So too does Fabian Johnson.
The U.S. looks better with Darlington Nagbe playing on the left. So there's also that.
So that'll be interesting to see who goes where, and if it is Nagbe and Areola, or if it's Nagbe and Johnson. I think that will maybe be the other wrinkle.
So I think what we've come to here, I guess we should move on a second, right? We've previewed this hard.
Yes.
So right back is a big question for the US, but to me the other big question is who are those three attacking midfield players and what shape do you put them in? I'm not saying we can solve this today, but I'm just saying that seems to be one of the questions we're going to be talking about between now and hopefully, fingers crossed, the first World Cup game of 2018.
Yeah, I think so.
The hopefully being, I hope we get there.
I know what you meant.
So once again, USA-Costa Rica is Friday night. It's on ESPN. It says 6:30, but the wonderful man who is Andrew Das of the New York Times has looked into this. Stephen Goff corroborates as well. Andrew Das says, and Stephen Goff says, it's a 6:55 kickoff. The official listed kickoff time is 6:55 p.m. Eastern in New Jersey.
So did you say New York Times?
Yes. Andrew Das is of the New York Times, Stephen Goff is of the Washington Post.
My mistake.
But
yes.
they're both into correct kickoff times.
Yes, they both are.
Love them for it. So yeah, and we'll have our quick take, hot take out Friday night to review that game, and then our long take, cold take will be out later Friday night.
Long take, warm take.
Long take, warm take.
Yeah.
Microwave take.
Yep.
Final thing on today's show, Taylor, is the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network.
Indeed. We have many of them to get to. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 reports today.
Oh, it's a Bruce Arena roster size.
There you go.
Network intake we've got here. Would you like to start or should I?
Sure, I'll go first.
Okay.
Up first is Eric Glassgold scouting Ezequiel Ponce, the 20-year-old Argentinian forward on loan at Lille from Roma. Ponce has been getting consistent minutes as a substitute since moving to Lille, appearing in 3 of the club's first 4 matches. He hasn't gotten any goals or assists yet, though he did score in preseason friendlies, but it appears he's enjoying life under new manager Marcelo Bielsa.
Everybody does for about a season.
Correct.
Up next, Richie Garcia is scouting Emerson Heineman, the 21-year-old American midfielder for Bournemouth, or as Taylor likes to call them, AFC Bournemouth. Richie says Emerson is finally back in action.
Well, also, Bournemouth like to call themselves AFC Bournemouth.
He played 55 minutes in the AFC Bournemouth U23s match against Brentford FC and got additional minutes with the U21s in their 4-1 win against Exeter City. So he's working his way back. I wonder how far Emerson Heineman is from that Bournemouth first team.
I'm going to say...
And then from the US roster.
Far. Less far. In that order, yes. Vu Tran scouting Mahmoud Daoud, the 21-year-old German midfielder for Borussia Dortmund. Daoud is behind Peter Bosch's favourite starting midfield of Castro, Shaheen, and Götze, but is still getting minutes as a substitute. He came on in the 80th minute of Dortmund's 2-0 win over Hertha Berlin and looked decisive in directing traffic for his side. He may be able to find more playing time as BVB's schedule gets more congested.
until Julian Vogel comes back, then there's trouble.
Also that.
Brendan Massa.
Or any of their 14 signings that they're making, yeah.
Brendan Massa is scouting Marlon Fossey, the 18-year-old American right back for Fulham. Fossey was the U20 right back, right? Who didn't make it to the World Cup.
Can you read the report?
I'm sorry. Brendan says...
Why do you do this to yourself?
Since dropping out on the eve of the U20 World Cup. Do you know what it is? Genuinely, I'm thinking out loud, like trying to remind myself who Marlon Fossey is. Anyway.
You do this every time.
I'll try not to from now on. Brendan says, since dropping out on the eve of the U20 World Cup due to a groin strain, news on Fossey has been scarce. Non-existent, actually. He has yet to return to his starting position in Fulham's Premier League 2, this U23 team, back four, or the squad in general, and no one seems to have a timetable for his return. That was a while ago. That was mad.
It's not great, yes, but hopefully he'll return soon. It is worth noting,
as we discussed on this show, American right backs are in short supply, so this is kind of a problem.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting though that he is like a reserve young player for a championship side, so there's probably not going to be a lot of news about him to begin with. So even if he is like slowly rehabbing, there's not going to be a story about Marlon Fossey rehabbing.
Fossey goes to the gym is not like headline in the Fulham newspaper. But Brendan, will you please look into this? Maybe go deeper and look into it for us. Do some deep Google searches because we depended on him for the future. No pressure, Marlon.
Up next, Jonathan Holmgren scouting Alex Iwobi, the 21-year-old Nigerian winger for Arsenal. I think, if I recall, he was like withdrawn from Nigeria's upcoming World Cup qualifiers. I think because of like a thigh injury, which he apparently suffered during training with Arsenal. Could be wrong, but as I recall, Galatasaray are also allegedly interested in acquiring Iwobi, but his injury, I think, might put that move on hold.
It's better when I do. Thank you, Jonathan. Taylor, I don't know if Taylor ruined your report or made it 10 times better with his joke. Well, you decide.
It can be both.
Ryan Mahazak is scouting the 20-year-old English midfielder on loan to Aston Villa from Tottenham, which must be Josh Onoma. Onoma's injury must not have been as serious as we originally thought. He started and played the full 90 in a 1-1 draw with Bristol City. He put in a man-of-the-match performance, scoring the only goal for Villa to earn a critical point. It looks to have taken a major deflection, but, all caps, who cares? A goal is a goal, and that is his first for Aston Villa this season. You know I'm on that Josh Onoma train.
I know you are. I'll also add, since I've just teased Daryl about always doing the like scouting report from memory without realizing that he's doing it, I'll also add to tease myself that I like routinely forget one thing or like double print one thing, and in this situation I forgot to include the player's name. So good. That's why Daryl Grove is a pro, because he rolls with it.
I think listeners could tell, but also could tell that I saved it.
It's because you're a pro, man. It's because you're a pro. Ryan Marzak is also scouting Pione Sisto, the 22-year-old Danish winger for Celta Vigo. Pione played the full 90 minutes on the left wing in a 2-1 loss to Real Betis in La Liga action. He had the honor, of being the most fouled player in the squad. Celta have dropped their first 2 matches of the league campaign, so Ryan says they are probably looking forward to the international break.
Steve Renard is scouting another of my favourites, Yuri Tielemans, the 20-year-old Belgian midfielder for AS Monaco. Steve says Tielemans didn't play in last week's 1-0 win versus Metz, but came on in the 62nd minute of Monaco's 6-1 demolition of Marseille. Wow. Despite the 6 goals, whoever does the highlights package for Ligue 1 managed to squeeze in at least 6 shots of Kylian Mbappe, who did not play, sitting on the bench, looking nauseatingly photogenic and ready for a trade. Thank you, Steve.
Russell Varner scouting Hugo Arellano, the 19-year-old American defender for LA Galaxy / Los Dos.
Hugo Arellano?
It is not. Russell sent in a pronunciation guide. Hugo started at left back in Los Dos' 2-1 loss to Vancouver Whitecaps 2. It was a game to forget for the youngster. His stats were poor. He had a poor clearance that led directly to Vancouver's opener, and he was then badly beaten to concede another good chance for the Whitecaps.
Ugh. Clay Jenkins is scouting Jadon Sancho, the 17-year-old English left winger for Manchester City. So I assigned Sancho to Clay Jenkins. Sancho was the... I'm just making sure this isn't in the scouting report. Yep, he was the player of the tournament at the Under-17 European Championships.
Yep.
And so a lot of England fans are kind of excited about it.
Gotcha.
Okay, Clay says, Sancho has 1 year remaining on his City contract and is reportedly eager to join Tottenham in hopes of getting first-team minutes. Spurs have ruled out a move for the youngster in the current window, and City aren't likely to release him, so things remain at an impasse, which Clay's okay with, as he would prefer Tottenham call up Marcus Edwards anyway. Yay.
It's a 17-year-old thinking that he'll get a move to the Spurs and then get first-team minutes is questionable at best.
Like, people need to lower their sort of expectations. Like, at least think...
When you say people, do you mean...
I mean Jadon Sancho.
Like talented teenagers, basically?
Especially English ones.
Yes. Jared Morgenstern scouting Alphonso Davies, 16-year-old Canadian left winger for Vancouver.
Speaking of talented guys who can actually demand first-team action.
Yes.
I know, I've read this.
The Alphonso Davies hype train has slowed a little coming out of the Gold Cup. Vancouver manager Carl Robinson has been relatively slow to reintegrate the 16-year-old inroad into the Whitecaps' attack, and he's only seen substitute appearances since returning. That said, he's starting to show flashes of his form and potential, and recently had a nice assist, muscling off Chad Marshall to help the Whitecaps salvage a point in a 1-1 draw with Seattle.
Have you seen this video?
I have not.
I haven't either, but I'm just imagining a 16-year-old muscling off Chad Marshall. I know Alphonso Davies is a big dude, but that's still an achievement.
Yeah, that doesn't happen easily.
Nuh-uh.
Nuh-uh.
I'd also say he's only 16. He went and played in a tournament. I would imagine that maybe Carl Robinson, ex-Wolves player, means that he's smart, will be sort of thinking, let's not burn this kid out, right?
Yeah.
16, it's a long MLS season with an international tournament in the middle, right? Just taking it easy. Dylan Viach is scouting Kai Havertz, the 18-year-old German midfielder for Bayer Leverkusen. Dylan says Kai was part of Leverkusen's matchday squad against Hoffenheim this weekend, but didn't leave the bench. While I'd prefer to see Kai get minutes, at least he was on the bench, a positive sign that he's on track toward a quick recovery from the knock that saw him miss their season opener against Bayern last weekend.
John Crispin scouting Pakamani Malambi, the 19-year-old South African winger for Bidvest Wits. It's been an interesting couple of months for Pac-Man, says John. After spending 3 weeks at Portuguese club Vitória de Guimarães,
Why not?
Patman returned to South Africa to play the 2018 season with his original club. There are some conflicting reports as to why Guimarães chose not to sign the talented winger, with the most likely explanation being that they weren't prepared to give him first-team minutes right away, which is something that he wanted. Patman has gotten limited minutes with Bidvest Wits since his return, ironic, and rumors persist that he may get a move in the current window.
Interesting. Okay, good luck to Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Evan Cameron is scouting Kyle Kopp. Oh dear, I've read this report already. Okay.
It makes me so happy.
20-year-old Welsh semi-pro attacking midfielder from Merthyr Town FC. Okay, Evan, all right. Evan says, after making only a single substitute appearance in the EFL Cup for Yeovil Town, Kopp was released and eventually picked up by Merthyr Town of the Southern Football League Premier Division. He scored a free kick for the Martyrs in their recent fixture against Hereford, so that's good. But I would remind you, this young man was assigned to me by Mr. Grove as a promising young player for my beloved Swansea some years ago and is now playing semi-pro ball. A real example of the tenuous fortunes of would-be professional players. Thank you for all the hard work, guys. This damp squib of a scouting aside, you deserve all the success you've achieved. Thanks, Evan.
Yes.
I think Evan also, I don't know if he says it specifically, but he's essentially asking for a reassignment.
Oh, yeah? I'm putting that one together.
Evan, we'll get that to you. Maybe email us if you have any particular player that you do want to scout. Please let us know.
Sure. I think Paul Pogba's available. So thank you to Eric, Richie, Vu, Brendan, Jonathan, Ryan, Steve, Russell, Clay, Jared, Dylan, John, and Evan. How's that for fast?
Not bad. I'd give it an intermediate plus.
I wrote them all down.
Oh, did you? Cheating. You could tell. You could tell you were reading from the teleprompter.
Are you usually just remembering them?
Yeah, I just imagine them. Okay, so thank you to everybody who sent us scouting reports. If you recently joined the Scouting Network and you're sort of you're waiting for your scout, it hasn't been sent yet, email Daryl at totalsoccershow.com, DARYL at totalsoccershow.com. Subject line itchy feet. I can get your player to you as quickly as possible. At least move you up the order as I slowly do the admin and work through the list.
This is why Daryl is not in charge of any transplant lists.
If you that you know of,
yeah.
If you have a player that you're scouting, please send your report to totalsoccershow.com/report. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt, totalsoccershow.com/merch.
Do you want to explain that one more time? You want them to send their reports to totalsoccershow.com/report?
So basically what we're doing is don't email them anymore, please, if you can avoid it. Go to the URL, totalsoccershow.com/report. There's a form to fill out, and then that populates a spreadsheet that makes it very easy for us to sort of combine all our reports in one place.
This is factual.
It's worth saying we started the Scouting Network as a way to fund the Total Soccer Show, right? So that basically so that we could keep going, so that we could go to 5 days a week, which is what we've done. It has been more successful than we ever possibly imagined it could be, which we're obviously super happy about. But that also means that lots and lots of reports come in. So it's a genuine Herculean task. Maybe not a genuine. It's a big task.
I know what you meant.
To keep track of all the reports coming in. That's why we've tried to centralize it into one big spreadsheet.
Indeed. So thank you to everyone who continues to file those reports. It does nice just to keep up with the goings-on around the world. Because we really do have a decently global scouting network.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know what Merthyr Town were doing. Unless everyone watched every game, as I assume that he is.
Almost certainly.
All right, we should get out of it, Taylor. So I will say thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy. And a quick update on the rest of the week. So we're doing the quick take, hot take, as we talked about, then the medium take, relatively fast take.
Yeah, so that'll be Friday night for the USA Costa Rica game.
And then the plan currently is to potentially do a show tomorrow evening after the window closes, if anything particularly crazy occurs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll talk to you Friday.
So yeah, if there's big transfer news, we'll do a show late on Thursday. If not, then we'll just be with you after the US Costa Rica game. I essentially just repeated what Taylor just said for emphasis.
Yep, but you made it British, and that's fine.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again either Thursday or Friday.